computer here. Get all the backups going.
Oh,
I'm so glad that we're here today. We're not missing any sun today because it's a rainy day.
oh, I know. It's like a perfect day to be inside and talk about.
Such a perfect day. I'm so looking forward to talking with you, and I have questions for you today, Kathryn.
Yeah.
But first, I want to give my digital marketing tip of the week. And I was telling you that I think of things while I'm coming up the stairs. And what I wanted to share today was often when people are on social media or they're writing blogs or they're making videos or whatever it is that they're doing, they're kind of flying, right? They're kind of like, today I want to do this and today I want to do that. And what I want to encourage people to do is whatever actions you're taking on your social media, number one, make it so that you're thinking ahead to whatever that long-term goal is that you want or that you want people to take action on. I know you just had a retreat, and so that was your call to action for a while. Talk to me about what it would be like to come to my retreat. My current call to action is, let's get on a phone call and see if you're a good match for this accountability digital marketing course that I'm putting up. That's my call to action for the next couple of weeks because the group is starting in a couple of weeks. But what I wanted to show you, so number one, keep the goal in mind. Number two, have a way to measure the results of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I want to show today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, now do you see B&M Catering on your screen?
I do.
Okay, so B&M Catering is one of my clients, and also the best food and the nicest people. That's unsolicited testimonial from me. They'll be catering my daughter's shower next week, and I use them for everything, and they're the nicest humans on earth. So what I want to tell you about the work that I do with B&M Catering is the number one thing that I want people to do when they see B&M Catering on Facebook, if they see them on Twitter, on Instagram, and their blogs and the newsletters, what I want people to do is to request a quote. I want people getting on the phone with them or filling out a form to say, I'm having this event here on this day, this many people, can you send me a quote? That is my number one thing. So at the bottom of every single blog, I have a few calls to action. Contact us is just as good as request a quote. Mm-hmm. Read our reviews, I always put, because they get amazing reviews everywhere. Every single blog is going to have request a quote, and it's also going to be in the text. So now, all right, so now you understand. So that's what Susan wants everybody to do with B&M Catering. But let me show you how I can measure the effects of what I do. You guys, I'm not going to get too far into analytics. I know that sometimes it makes people uneasy, but I want you to know that if you know the 1, 2, maybe 3 things to look at in analytics that are going to make a difference in your business, it makes it so much easier. So you don't have to look at all of these graphs, all of these numbers, unless you're geeky like me and you love them. But here's one thing you can do. If you know that there's something you want people doing, you want to be able to measure it. So I have a tag on that page, on that conversion page. Basically, I took the URL of the completed request a quote form. Let me explain what that means. So somebody fills out a request a quote form, and you guys have seen this, right? And then you hit submit, and then you get to another page that says, thank you very much, we'll be right with you. So that thank you very much page is my money page. That's my conversion page. Here's how I look at it. I go to the analytics. I go to all traffic. I go to where I am now, channels. I've set this for you today so that you can look at the past month. So in the month of May, I've set my goal. I don't know if you guys can see this well. It says my goal is request a quote form. So if I go over to here, this is going to tell you how many people have completed the request a quote form, so 194 in a month. And then here, it tells you where the traffic came from. Organic search, direct means they put it right into They put clam bake code right into their URL. So I'm going to be looking at those, but I'm mostly going to be looking at social. I do some paid pay-per-click for them, and referrals. And then I can make future actions based on the information that I get here. So my advice in this particular week, on this particular time, is that always be thinking of what your goal is and see if there's some way you can measure the results of your actions on reaching that goal. All right. So now,
And I'm just to jump in on that too, because I was like, wait, what is she using? Google Analytics. Oh yes, I've heard about that, but I've never actually used it. So I know it's like a whole other thing, right? I'm hiring a VA to help with stuff like that. But so what I've done is also on my website is Squarespace. So I'll go to the analytics that are built in there, and it's not as intense as that one, but that's there as well. So I'm sure you have a whole other probably either program or day long, or a separate thing that goes just through Google Analytics.
there's a lot of different things, and I have to tell you that there's probably this much stuff that you can do with Google Analytics, and I do this much. I do work with a pay-per-click person, search optimization person, and every month, so I know enough to understand what needs to be done. I work with somebody who is my implementer, who gives me he's on my team, and he tells me what the results are of what we're doing. We review the results, and then we talk about strategies. Should we make a new landing page? Do we change up the images? Do we have different calls to action? And then we measure them and see if they're working or not. Mm-hmm. But on a very, very simple level, just have something you can measure. So if you have your dashboard, you're good to go.
And if any of you out there have no idea what Susan's talking about, that's why you should hire her.
All right, here we go. All right, I want to thank you for showing up today, Kathryn. So good. I'm going to introduce you with your formal introduction, Kathryn Ford Richter, BSN, RN. What is BSN?
Just means that I have a bachelor's of science in nursing, and I'm a
registered nurse. Is a self-care and mindset coach who helps modern business owners and other professionals create a thriving career by designing a life based around self-care. Kathryn's holistic background as a nurse, yoga instructor, and essential oils educator reflect in her work with clients. She offers them various tools to help reduce fear, let go of guilt, and increase confidence by taking continuous actions to lead to a happier, healthier, successful life and business. I loved when I asked Kathryn what is her superpower. She says that it's her ability to see things from many perspectives, which I love. And today we're going to be talking about how to ditch the guilt so that you can do less with more impact. And I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say about it, Kathryn. Thanks again for being here.
Thanks for having me, Susan. It's funny because I think we were just having the conversation before we started recording. Can I share, or do you want to share?
Please share.
And you were saying how you had weeks where you were networking all the time and giving a lot of your energy away. And then this week was more of a quiet internal space where you maybe had a few calls, but it was more of a listening. And I think it's so interesting to notice that we as business owners sort of have these energetic fluctuations of what's required of us in our businesses. And I think that, one of the things that I've learned, just to jump back to my background for a second, basically all that big spiel, right? Those bios. It just means I was a nurse. I worked as a nurse. I'm still a nurse, but I worked as a nurse for 10 years and I became really burnt out. And I decided, well, I want to help other people learn to live a sustainable life. And initially it was for nurses, and then all these other business owners started to reach out. And so I was like, okay, this was a great lesson and a tool for everybody to learn that it's so, so, so important to take care of your own self so that you can care for everyone else, right? Whether you're a nurse, whether you're a business owner, right? Whatever it is. And I think that we as women tend to wear so many different hats, and we give our energy all away to so many people because we're genuinely loving and we want to help everybody. But I think what we forget is that we absolutely need to save some for ourselves, because otherwise we're not going to be really efficient. We're not going to show up our most powerful selves, and we're not really going to be able to make the impact that we wanted to make. And I can say that from experience, because I said, okay, I'm going to be a coach because I want to help other people with self-care. And at the beginning, I was a really shitty self-care coach because all I did was focus so much on my business that I was losing myself. And I was like, oh my God, how ironic. I'm a self-care coach, but I'm focusing on my business. And so I think it's really important to remember, wherever you are, at whatever stage you're at in your business, because I know most people that listen to this are in business, it's really important to take a step back and get clear on your why, right? So get clear on your why for what is it that why did you show up? Why did you want to create this business, right? Who are you trying to help? And then think about, when you're your best self, how are you able to best serve these people? And what are those things that help you to become your best self, right? And what I mean by that is, you have a lot of energy, you're feeling good, you're feeling full, right? You feel like you're open to receive, but you can also give energy out and not have it be sucking you dry. And so I think that it's really about learning to manage your own energy, and that you don't have to do everything for everyone all at once and expect to do that every day, day in and day out. Do you want me to keep going, or do you have any questions? Otherwise,
I'm just thinking, because of where I am, right, in my journey. My kids are grown, they're out. I had so many friends that are and were, and not necessarily in business, just in life, so burnt out from taking care of everybody, the husband, the kids, the parents, the in-laws, the committees at school. And so many people I know really made themselves sick.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the thing that's so important to remember is, because we wear these different hats and we do have these different roles that we play, I think that we feel like we have these obligations where we have to say yes to everybody, right? Out of guilt.
Yeah.
And this is where that guilt comes in. Oh, I feel guilty saying no because they helped me. I feel guilty saying no because, I should do this, right? We have those like, we should ourselves, right? And I think it's really important to recognize that we are the ones that can set our boundaries around our time, and that we all have the same amount of time in the day. How we choose to spend it in terms of our obligations, and even our obligations are things that we've chosen, right? Like, you've chosen to be a parent, you've chosen to be a spouse, right? You don't choose to be a daughter, right? You just were. You didn't have much of a choice in that, right? But I mean, even that, you choose to have a relationship and you could not, right? And so I think that what's really important to remember is that at the end of the day, we have choices. And so even though we may be concerned that we might be letting somebody else down, that it's okay to say no to things. And I think it's really important to say no to things. And for such a long time, I was that person that always said yes. And then I was like, I'd look at my schedule and think, I don't want to do this. How am I going to get out of it? Right? And so we spend all this time and energy trying to figure out how to get out of something, that instead saying, thank you so much for the invitation. Let me check my schedule and see if that's something that works for me, right? Let me see if that's something I can commit to at this time, right? And so it gives you the space to really step back, to look at your whole schedule, right? And look at not just the day, but the week, and maybe the weeks. Like you had said before, you had a week or two of just networking, right? And so it's really useful when you can see it. I'm super visual. And so I always find it really useful to be able to look at my schedule and look at it again, the whole week and the week before and after. Because if I have a really busy week, I want to make sure that the week before, the week after, or really both, tend to be a little bit lighter. Or if I know that I have a really busy day, I might want to make sure that the day before or the day after is a little bit lighter, Because I think the reality is that we need to remember, again, whether you're a business owner or not, our to-do list is always going to be there. It's always going to be long. It's never going to end. I'm sorry to say that to you, but it's true. Right? And I think that we tend to focus on what we didn't get done.
Oh, for sure.
Instead of celebrating what we did. And so I always tell people in terms of, and I think this might be useful to maybe give some tips and tools, but some of the things that I really like to do and I think is really useful is make a list, right? And my coach calls it the to remember list. And I love that, right? It's just you're writing all those things down to remember that these are things that you want to do. And then you can look at them and decide, well, which ones are really priorities, right? Because there's always going to be a million things you need to do, but what's really, really important? And maybe you take 5, right? And you take like your top 5 and you number them, right? You number them and you put a letter, A, right? Mm-hmm. So the top 5, you're going to give A. I absolutely, really, really want to do these top 5 things. And then of those 5 things, 1 through 5, what do I absolutely have to do today? And then the second and the third. So you have A, 1 through 5. And then you do the same thing with the next 5, B, 1 through 5, C, 1 through 5, and so on. And what I think is really useful about that is it really helps to hold you accountable to say, this is the one thing I'm going to do. Maybe I'm going to set my timer. I'm going to shut down all my other pages. I'm going to put my phone on Do Not Disturb. And this is the one thing I'm going to focus on for, say, 20 minutes or an hour, mm-hmm. 25 minutes or an hour. Mm-hmm. Because then that way you can say, I wanted to do this. I chose to do this. I have done this. And again, whether it's something that you can check off because it's done, or maybe it's a task that takes 5 hours, but you did a 1-hour chunk. Yes. And so it's so important to celebrate those things, right? So that's one way that I find is useful to help you manage your time. And the other way is I love to have people draw a pie chart. And you can do this in 12 hours or 24 hours. It's completely up to you, however you want to do it. But what I like to have people do is to be really honest and to say where you spend your time, right? So do you sleep, 6, 7, 8 hours of let's just say 12 hours, right? Or 24 hours, whatever it is, right? And then I work these amount of times. I commute this amount of time. I cook this amount of time. And be really honest. I mess around on Facebook for an hour, yet I say I have no time.
Yes.
Yet I'm doing this.
Yes.
Right? And it's not judgment. It's simply noticing. Right? So what you're doing is you're looking at this visual to see where you're spending your time. And then you can look at it and say, well, do I really need to spend this much time doing this? Could I carve this out and make some time for me? Because the reality is that if you're always giving, you're not going to have anything left for you. Mm-hmm. And then the people around you notice. So you're not the best mom. You're not the best spouse. You're not the best fill in the blank, mm-hmm. friend, yep. Right? Your clients notice and you have that energy, right? We're all vibrational, energetic beings, whether you believe in that or not. Like everything in this world is energy. And so if you're really, those days you feel really low and you don't have much to give, people notice that.
They do.
And if that's how you're showing up every day because you're chronically stressed, you're chronically tired, people are going to notice, and that's going to have an impact on you personally and professionally, right? So I think it's really important that if you're feeling guilty because you feel like you should be doing more, should be helping someone else, I think it's really important to remember what is going to serve me the most. And it's okay to let people down. And the reality is you might. You probably will. You definitely will.
That's true, for sure.
People are always going to ask us to do things, but I think that when we can be really honest and say, thank you so much, but that's just, I can't commit to that right now. I just have too much on my plate and I need a little time for me. People actually look at that and say, wow, how inspirational.
Oh, true.
Right? Because the person that's like the perfect mother that like always has her shit together, she looks beautiful all the time and she's put together and she's going to every meeting and she runs a successful business. You're like, oh my God, how does she do it? She's Superwoman. And what does it do? You compare and then you feel bad about yourself. Right? But if you can be that person that's like, hey, I'm real. I need time for me, and I'm going to let you know that. I think more people are inspired by that.
I agree. Now that you say that, I do look at people who say things like that. I'm like, wow, they really do have their act together. There are people I know who have a standard email response that says, I will answer your email as soon as I can. Know that I only look at my emails first thing in the morning and again late afternoon. If there's something really important, you're going to have to reach me by phone or something like that. And I'm like, oh, that is so smart, instead of always having to jump over and respond right away to somebody's email.
Well, and that's just it, because we're always going to have people coming at us wanting something from us, right? Whether it's like you said, you're a parent, right? Where it's like, mom, 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 right? When my door is closed, I'm in this space. That means, and that's whether like your kids are 5 or your kids are 15 or 20.
Right.
When mom is in this office, that means you don't knock on the door, right? Unless it's an emergency. Otherwise, you can wait 5 minutes. And I think that when you set those expectations and those boundaries early on, it's really useful. So I think it's a wonderful idea. And I've seen a lot of people do that. And I think it's great because it allows you to say, I'm on my time. I'm choosing how I want to spend it. Do I want to constantly get distracted and pulled away for an email that's like, hey, do you want to come to this party? It's like,
Right.
That's great. Thanks. But I'm in the middle of something pretty important right here. Am I going to let my brain get distracted? Right. So it's okay to say, no, I'm not going to check my email. And if it's urgent, call me. So I think, that's really the biggest thing is that really to manage your own energy it takes time. It takes practice, right? We have to learn new habits. We have to learn new ways of being. Because if we've been this way our whole lives, we've created these habits, and they've served us up until now. We've managed fairly well, and now we get to this point in life where we recognize things aren't quite the way I want them to be. Right? I want to make some shifts. I want to make some tweaks. I'm at a different season of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you might have small kids. Your kids might be grown, right? So we're in these different seasons where it's like things are fluid, things are changing. And so it's like, cool, in this moment, what do you need? Right? And so it might be adding in more healthy habits, right? Meditation, walking, exercising, eating better, but it might also be taking things away, right? Saying yes to less things. And when you're able to feel more in control of your time and of your own life, you realize that because when you're doing that, oh, I feel so much better. I have more energy. I'm sleeping better. Clients are showing up out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having more conversations with people. Right? My relationship with my spouse is better. So you start to learn to be okay with feeling less guilty because you're seeing the benefits of putting yourself first and what that means. But there's kind of like this messy period where it's new and it feels sticky and you're like, oh, I feel guilty. Do it anyway. And then notice, no one ever says, I wish I didn't meditate. Or I wish I didn't take that walk or go to that yoga class or sit and have that cup of coffee outside because it was a beautiful day. But they do say, wow, I wish I said no to this event, right? I wish I didn't take on this responsibility. Oh, this isn't the right client for me. And now they're exhausted. Right? So it's really giving yourself the permission. And I say this to a lot of my friends and my clients. Treat yourself and talk to yourself like you would your best friend.
Oh, I love that.
Right? You'd never judge your friend and say, what do you mean you only did 3 things on your to-do list? You'd say, oh my God, you did those 3 things while owning a full-time business, while raising kids, while helping your aging parents, while volunteering at your kids' right? And you highlight all of the wonderful things. So do that for yourself.
So good. I want to make note that there's somebody on the Facebook Live, Mark, wants to point out, on talking about time, he wants to say time is a finite resource. And he's talking about on the shortness of life and how important it is, I would imagine, to your point, to really protect and use it as we want to, as we need to.
Yeah, and I think that's so true. And, it's when you hear people on their deathbeds and they have their regrets, they always say, it's never about business. It was never about money. It's about time with their family, their loved ones, vacations, exploring, doing nothing. And I think you're right. It's such a great point. It's this idea of life is short, make it your own, right? You see so many people that just like burn the candle at both ends and the whole thing is on fire. And they say, that's okay. I'm going to retire at 65.
Oh, yeah.
And then my life will be great. And I'm going to travel and I'm going to get an RV. Well, those years may catch up with you. And those years of chronic stress and the hormones pumping through your body, right? Now you might have high blood pressure. Now you might have high cholesterol. Now you might have heart disease. So now you might have all these other inflammatory conditions, arthritis, that have been a result of the years of the way that you've lived your life. And now that might get in the way of your dreams of what you wanted to do. And so I think it's really important also to remember that. And I'm so glad he brought that up from a health perspective. To really be happy, to be healthy. When people are unhealthy, typically they're not happy. They don't feel good. So I think, again, it's like taking the time to be more mindful about what you're eating, what you're putting in your body. Are you moving? Do you drive all the time? Do you need to stretch? Even 5 minutes is really key to living a more sustainable life and having a sustainable business so that you can be well.
That is so good. I feel like I could talk about this forever and ever. And so we'll have to talk about it the next time we see each other or take a walk on the beach together.
Absolutely.
But before we have to go, tell me, Kathryn, how it is that you work with people, where people can find you, and what would be the best way for people to stay in touch with you and get more of you?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's my name, Kathryn Ford Richter, which is a mouthful. Are you going to put a little link or something?
I sure will. Yep.
Okay. So Susan will put a link to my website and my email so anybody can reach out, but it's just www.kathrynfordrichter.com. Same with my email. You can email info@kathrynfordrichter.com. I work with people in many different ways. So I do offer one-on-one coaching to see if it would be a good fit. You can always reach out to me to schedule a conversation. I do also work within small organizations and companies and go in and really explore what they're doing in terms of their wellness for the clients and the company, and really help people to create a more healthier, happier culture by offering these different, coaching and mindfulness, and really helping people to grow within the organization, but to also create a culture that helps to recognize that when your employees and your clients are happier and healthier and actually making the time to prioritize self-care, that you're going to notice, right? Less sick days, increased productivity, right? Saving money on health insurance, right? So all these different offerings. So yes, definitely reach out, connect with me. I'd love to have a conversation.
Awesome. That would be, I'm just thinking about that, right? Of all the companies that spend so much time on this, that, and the other thing and but then they keep pushing their employees to do more, be more. What do you mean you only put in 10 hours? What is that? What are you kicking off early? It's only 6 o'clock. That if they put a priority on the topics that you're talking about, how much more they would get in longevity of their employees, not longevity life-wise, but just keeping the good employees.
Well, the retaining.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, versus having to constantly have this turnover because it's not sustainable. You see that a lot in sales organizations. And so I've worked with a lot of sales organizations to help, like, hey, let's make this sustainable. You don't want it to be turn and burn for a year and then everyone's out. That's too expensive and it's too exhausting.
So good.
Yeah.
Awesome. I will put the link to your website. I will put the link to your email. You guys can find Kathryn on Facebook, everywhere that you need to be. And when you're ready to ditch the guilt, do less and have bigger impact. You know what? I want to tell you something too. So this week, I think I told you I was in a little bit of a funk, and it was because I gave away a lot of energy last week. Now I see that. And I listened to a podcast, I think it was Mel Robbins earlier this week. And then somebody put in my Rise Above Noise Facebook group a quote. And then another discussion yesterday, and you're the first. When I heard the third one, I was like, this is your message, Susan. Like, you can't, it's 3 times now. And now you're saying again. And so I really have to pay attention to this, is that it doesn't have to be hard. That when I remember my mission, when I remember why I'm doing what it is that I'm doing, why I show up to serve heart-centered entrepreneurs, to make it so that they can show up in front of their audience and make that shift to love and peace and health in life, that I don't have to work and worry so much about my sales pages and my analytics. I mean, it's important and I'm going to do it, but I want to focus more on my why and speaking to that. And so this is the 4th time, so maybe you'll be seeing a shift in how I show up as well.
I'm so excited for that. And I think you're right. You notice when you make those shifts, it feels easier because you're in the flow.
Yes.
But when you're pushing and resisting and pushing and resisting, it's like, that's the universe, whatever you feel, God, universe, your body's way of saying something's not right. Something's out of balance. So you just have to slow down enough to listen to what's going on. So give yourself at least 5 minutes a day, everybody. Just 5 minutes.
Awesome. Thank you, Kathryn.
Thank you.
I will see you
fun.
soon. All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.